Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel. This is our last panel of the summit today. My name is Corey Alpert. I'm the Chief Strategist here at Field Team 6. Welcome to this panel on surprise swing states. When we think of a swing state, we think of Georgia or now Arizona. We used to think of Florida. But we don't really think about New York or California to a certain extent, or even Texas, as those swing states. But when we look at the House race in 2022, it was those seats in New York that really swung the nationwide House election. So there are lots of swing opportunities up and down the ballot, and there are states that are moving closer towards being able to win. So we have a really exciting panel of folks who have run for office and won in some really interesting places, folks who are helping guide candidates and helping us move closer to victory in a lot of really great places. So now let's meet the perfect person to moderate this panel. Excuse me, almost getting emotional. My best friend and the person I've been working most closely with for the last, seems like 15 years of my life, Lauren Harper. Lauren has extensive campaign experience serving as the coordinated campaign director for Texas Democratic Party. It's the state director for Beto O'Rourke's 2020 presidential campaign. She and I founded a voter registration nonprofit in North and South Carolina early in the 2020 cycle. And she's also the co-founder of Welcome PAC, whose job it is to grow the Democratic Party by targeting the most vulnerable Republicans and supporting pragmatic Democratic candidates who have broad crossover appeal to win elections by beating Trump's allies on their own turf. So please welcome my best friend, the best person to lead this panel, Lauren Harper.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Corey. So good to see you and everybody else on here today. Yeah, looking for swing states and also swing districts is what I do for a living, right? So we think that there's a lot more congressional districts that are at play than people necessarily think there are. And so we try to put up a challenge to make sure we're not what we call conceding democracy to Republicans. So let's get on in. I will introduce all of our panelists. And I don't know if I can see everyone, so I hope I'm announcing people who are actually here. There we go. All right, so first up, Madison Horn. She was born a Cherokee Nation tribal citizen in a small Oklahoma town where 68% of women are unemployed. Madison beat the odds to become a trusted global cybersecurity leader with a decade of experience. She ran for Senate in 2022, traveling to all of Oklahoma's 77 counties to restore trust in government, address rising costs of living, and defend reproductive rights. And although she lost, unfortunately, in November, she was outraised 22-1. She earned more than 369,000 votes, sparking new hope in Oklahoma. So thank you so much, Madison, for being here. Next up, we have Representative Gabe Vasquez. Thanks so much for being here. He's a first-generation Mexican immigrant who became a successful entrepreneur before joining Senator Heinrich's staff, where he focused on policy issues in southern New Mexico. He was elected to Las Cruces City Council by an overwhelming majority in 2017, and in 2022, despite the forecast of a red wave, he was able to flip the state's ruby red 2nd District blue by 1,350 votes. Love it. The DCCC has officially named him a frontline candidate, so congrats on that, and someone who we must ensure makes it back to Congress. So thank you so much, Representative Vasquez, for being here. And our third panelist is Elena Martinez-Vivot. I hope I'm saying that right. She began organizing while attending Colorado College. Her efforts to increase student turnout led to a collaboration with the Colorado Secretary of State and becoming a founding member of the Colorado Election Youth Advisory Council. She now serves as organizing director of the Colorado Democratic Party. Love that. And she's in a truly purple state, as we all have seen over the past several years, with many deep red districts and opportunities for electoral surprises. I can't wait to talk to you about Adam Frisch's race, so we'll have to chime in on that one at some point. And then our final panelist is George Whitesides. He's the Democrat running for Congress against insurrectionist Republican Mike Garcia in California's 27th district, north of LA. NASA's chief of staff for the Obama administration, George earned the Distinguished Service Medal agency's highest honor. He became the first CEO of Virgin Galactic, growing it to a global aerospace firm and creating 700 jobs. He also is co-founder of Megafire Action, the first organization dedicated to solving our nation's megafire crisis. And he co-chaired the Antelope Valley COVID Task Force, for which he received the NASA Exceptional Public Achievement Medal. So amazing. Thank you guys for being here. It is quite a group here. Thank you guys. I'm going to start out with you, Representative Vasquez. You pulled off a miracle in your district, and Representative, not seen since Sachi Torres Small in 2018, and she had a blue wave behind her. You did this with political headwinds against you. So can you talk about how you did it, and what does your success teach us about other districts like yours?
Thank you so much. And it's so great to be here with you, Lauren, the whole Field Team 6 crew. And I got to give a special shout out to my good friend, Mr. Don Foster, as well. He was one of the folks who first believed in our campaign, thought that I could win this district and really help me go the distance. I think for me, look, this has been a traditionally Republican district. For the last 50 years, only 3 Democrats have held the seat and only for 1 term. And they've had to really take a very centrist and often right of center policy position on a whole bunch of different things, even running as Democrats. And so what I wanted to do is run as myself, right? I think authenticity is key in these swing districts. We've heard from pundits and from other folks all across the country that part of the reasons Republicans didn't win like they were expected to is because they had bad candidates, right? They had folks who were kind of loyalist, Trump, MAGA type of folks with not a whole lot of fresh ideas, but really kind of harping on the same cultural issues that we are seeing the Republican Party continue to propagate, even during my short time in Congress. For me, it was really about being myself, right? I told the story about who I was, about my grandfather coming from central Mexico to the U.S.-Mexico border, about how I was the first in my family to grow up in this country and have the privilege of American citizenship, and how I felt that weight on my shoulders to show people, to show not just the folks of this district, but of this country, what Mexican-American immigrant families are capable of. And for myself, it's serving in Congress. It's serving my community. It's helping to start a business. It's starting at the local level, fixing potholes, broken street lamps, barking dogs, replacing stop signs. When you get called to public service, it shouldn't just be, immediately to the highest office because you have privilege or you have wealth. It should be out of a deep desire to serve your community. And so even though Republicans threw a whole bunch of money at me, even though they try to paint me as an extremist kind of progressive, I think folks saw through that. They resonated with my story. And on things like climate change and immigration, I never wavered, right? I didn't run to the middle on some of those issues that are so deeply important to me. And so whether people agree with me on all the issues or not, I think what they saw was an authentic candidate. And I think that's what made the difference. That's where those 1,300 votes were. And we performed really well amongst independent voters, which in districts like this, that is what is so tempting for candidates to go to the middle. And for me, I think it was all about authenticity. I'll pass it back to you, Laura.
I love that. Yeah. Like to echo the authenticity factor. We do that a lot with Welcome Pack stuff. And your approach is a winning coalition, right? We call it the dual democracy approach, where moderate Republicans are willing to split their ticket sometimes and vote for a Democrat, maybe for the first time and maybe for the first time in a long time. But you're right. Like when we can get independents and moderate Republicans to also support you, that's the golden ticket right there. So I'm so grateful that you're able to appeal to these voters because, like you said, when you are yourself, it really does go a long way. So I appreciate that a lot. Awesome. My next question is going to be for Madison. Do you think there's other swing opportunities in Oklahoma, even down ballot, where we could see some blue cracks in a red wall?
I appreciate the analogy there, the blue cracks and the red wall. I think that some of the panelists here kind of already hit on how we can do that, but is it possible? Then I believe the answer is yes. As far as statewide office, I don't believe that is going to be the opportunity for the state in the next 10 years, but certainly in the congressional districts, especially in our urban cores. But we're really going to have to be looking at what does the next 7 years look like? What are those House seats? What do those Senate seats look like at the state level so that we can start creating some space for Democrats in preparation for the census report in 7 years, because right now the gerrymandering for the congressional seats is causing a little turmoil. It's going to take a lot more effort, a lot more organization for those to turn blue. But absolutely the opportunity is there. With our campaign, we knew that the urban cores were going to show up, or at least we hoped that they did, and we're going to be more blue, just based on historic data. And so for us, it was the rural areas. And we're starting to see, especially with the infrastructure bill that Biden had put into place, that they're kind of starting to realize where the money is coming from and who is supporting them. So I think as we continue to look at how Democrats can create more space in Oklahoma, we're going to really focus on what are the issues facing rural Oklahomans, how can the Democratic message and party get back to and speaking to those everyday people in the heartland.
I love that. The messaging and the messenger are important. So you are totally spot on with that. And I appreciate that a lot. I'm going to go down to George. Speaking of messages and issues, what do you think are the messages and issues that are going to resonate most with your district's voters? And how do you think those issues will help get us some more Democrats registered to vote?
Well, thanks a lot. And thanks for having me on this panel. This is literally like the first thing that I've done as a candidate. So it's great to be with you all. And, CA 27 is an eminently winnable district. We won it in 2018. And Christy Smith came within 300 votes of winning it in the last presidential cycle in 2020. So this is a seat that we can win, we will win, and frankly, we've got to win if we're going to take back the House and let our congressman, take increasing positions of leadership. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do that by telling a really simple story. One is creating jobs in the district, good jobs in the district. I've done that. I've created 700 jobs already in the Antelope Valley, and I know how to bring economic development. A lot of people drive a couple hours down to LA every day and back. They're spending 4 hours of their day, on the 14 and the 5. That's a really hard thing, and it has a big impact on people's lifestyle. We're going to talk about energy, both, how we can lower gas prices, but also how we can, tell a story of green jobs this district is really well suited to generate. We're leading the way in solar energy and wind and even hydrogen. And so I think there's a great potential for those kinds of jobs, as well as there's a thriving aerospace sector, which, I've been a part of and been lucky enough to help things to space with people that are in our district. And I think a big part of the message is also going to be that Congressman Garcia is not really representative of the district. He's somebody who signed on to the national abortion ban bill. This district voted 58% for Prop 1, in California, which was the amendment around choice. This is a district that really could use the infrastructure money that was part of the infrastructure bill. That's something that Congressman Garcia voted against. And I think there's just a range of different issues, what you're talking about, gun safety, choice, energy, infrastructure, in which I think he's just not representative of where the district is today. And so we're going to carry that message forward. And I think we're going to bring the resources together to do that. And I'm really confident that we're going to be able to do a good job and take the seat back.
I love that. Well, wishing you the best of luck in that. We were in a district not too far, I think, from yours with Ken Calvert, with Will Rollins last cycle. And again, to your point, when you have a villain or super villain running or as an incumbent, you can put up a good fight when you bring a message that really does resonate with most of the people there. In districts where we call them Trump underperformed districts, right? These are places where they're obviously conservative leaning, but they're not incredibly Trumpy, right? They're places where the electorate is, only 52% Trump or 55% Trump. And so those are places that we think are vulnerable and places that we can really win back some seats. So if we were only 5 seats away last cycle, we can win those back plus more, hopefully this next cycle in 2024. So I'm excited about your run. All right, Elena. Again, the question that I was so eager to ask you about, I was literally with Adam Frisch last Friday, actually in DC. He's a great guy and just super excited to continue to support him in his candidacy, running against, again, supervillain Lauren Boebert. So did you see her upset coming? And, how do you think we can defeat her for real this time in 2024?
Yeah, so first, just want to start off by saying thank you, Lauren, and to the whole Field Team 6 team for hosting me. I have to say, I'm feeling a little intimidated being the only person on this panel who hasn't run for Congress. So we'll see how I answer these questions. And then I do just have to throw out, because in my official capacity as the organizing director of the Colorado Democratic Party, the party has a very strict neutrality clause. And in any race where there's more than one Democrat running, of course, we have to maintain that neutrality. So there are currently 2 Democrats who are registered to run in CD3. So I'm happy to speak about the conditions, but of course cannot overtly endorse a singular candidate. But just the basic answer to your question, holy crap, was this a surprise for all of us at the state party? And kind of background going into that is Colorado is one of the very fortunate states to have an independent redistricting commission that redo all of our districts in the lead up to the fall elections. And in that redistricting process, Congressional District 3 actually went 9 points redder than it was beforehand. And so going into the race, we really just saw no path to victory. Seeing the amount of money that Boebert had and just the fact that the district itself is incredibly geographically challenging. Like, it's a state or a district that could seriously fit like 3 Massachusetts inside of it. And not just that, but it's a district with a tremendous amount of geographical obstacles, mountain ranges, and so a lot of those communities are pretty isolated and contained within themselves. So yeah, did not see it coming at all. But now that we see that momentum and we see how fired up the folks in CD3 are, we're already having conversations with tons of grassroots folks on the ground. And I think for me, the biggest thing is going to be to continue to providing as much support as possible to our local county chairs, because again, since this is a district that's pretty broken up geographically amongst those different mountain ranges, we have to focus on individual communities one at a time. And then the other thing is really working to engage as many Latinos as possible within the district, because this is a district that includes most of the Colorado ski industry and ski corridor. And a lot of workers who live and work in that community are immigrant workers and Latinos. And so we need to make sure that we're creating a space for them to participate in this process and making sure that their voice is elevated as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, obviously, best of luck to you in that endeavor, because the field of the Field Team 6 and the field of the organizing programs across the country, they are the ones who make it happen. So we appreciate you guys. All right, I'm going to open up to everybody on this question. So, jump right in where you feel excited. Obviously, 2024 is a presidential election year, right? And so it's going to be a little bit different, right? Yep, rubbing your hands, rub sand like Birdman. But you're getting a different electorate in 2024. The midterms are a little sleepier, right? So how do you think, well, one, it's a 2-part question, so you can either answer one or both, you're fancy. But how do you think that's going to affect the electorate in 2024 for races like y'all's? What are the ways that you can use your authenticity to get people to vote for the person and not necessarily the party, if that's what you're trying to do?
Well, I'll just chime in here real quick, and I'll just say that that I don't think we know yet. I think we still have a lot of factors in play. Of course, I think the biggest one is being who the GOP presidential nominee is going to be. I think that's really going to determine the turnout on the Republican side. And so, we saw that in 2018. Trump was able to get out a lot of non-traditional voters in places like my own district in rural New Mexico and other places where non-traditional voters, just went all out and really overwhelmed a lot of rural communities like my own. And so I think whether it's DeSantis or Trump or somebody else, that motivation for voters to get out to the polls like they did when they thought they were electing some maverick that hadn't existed before, some anomaly in the Republican Party. Who knows if DeSantis is going to be able to draw or elicit that same type of response, or if it's Trump, if people are still that excited to go to the ballot for him, or if he's going to be received more lukewarm. So I think it's still yet to be seen. I think for Democrats, look, we have 2 years to really tout our accomplishments. The last 2 years of the Biden administration have had just tremendous success in terms of investments in infrastructure. The largest investment in climate that we've ever seen. Those projects are going to be implemented and continue to be implemented in our communities over the next 2 years. And as Mr. Whitesides mentioned, many times with incumbent Republicans who didn't vote or didn't support those investments. So I think it's incumbent upon the Democratic candidates to really tout that, to show what progress Democrats have made in this country. And again, to really make sure that for these local districts in Congress, that you make it about your local community, that you don't get sucked into the national political conversation, but that you talk about those small rural communities, that you really bring home what it's going to mean to elect somebody like you for your district. So I think that's what we have to do, is localize these hard congressional races. There's 18 districts that Biden won that Republicans, that Democrats lost in the last election. So I think we have to target those 18 districts with excellent candidates.
I'm just going to piggyback off. I love the fact that you talked about that we're not really sure what this landscape is going to look like. And I entirely agree. And I think what we can do, not only just really stress the messaging, but also create a little bit of connect. Remember that we are bringing very quality, very high performing candidates that have a focus on change for their districts. And I think that that's a lesson learned from the midterms that we can take into 2024 and really identify who didn't show up to vote, what's motivating individuals to vote, and how can we start flipping people, at least to start listening. And this was the biggest, I think, success of my campaign, or what allowed us to have the success that we did, is that we started innovating. We had $500,000 to run a US Senate campaign. And that's because within swing states, we don't get the funding. We don't get the backing because they don't believe that there's the opportunity. And so how can we change our approach and use technology to actually get to voters quicker and more effectively? And so, there were ways for us to write tools and use data analytics and really start targeting that message. And it was wild. I'll give an example. We wrote a texting platform that allowed us to reach voters versus leveraging, I think it was around $500,000 just to reach my entire state once. And we were able to send unlimited text messages for $20. Now we broke the tool, we're reworking it. But it's things like that we can do because we live in a digital age, and really thinking about where our voters are, how to reach them, and being very effective with our messaging.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just add into the conversation about what I see as the biggest opportunity in a presidential year is young voters, right? I think the kids who are turning 18 and they're like, oh my gosh, I get to vote for president for the first time, or anyone who's turned 18 in the last 2 years and they haven't gotten to vote for president yet, I think those folks are going to be excited. And I really think we need to pay attention to how we educate and also support young voters, because a lot of the work that I've done in Colorado prior to my time at the Colorado Democratic Party focused on just reducing barriers to voting and voter accessibility. And that's something that especially impacts young voters, and something to keep in mind in a presidential year.
I'm following the extensive chat that's going on here, which is like really good sublayer. Our district, CA27, actually voted for Biden by 12.5 points. So this is one of those 18 districts. It's actually the third most pro-Biden district in the country that has a Republican, and not just any Republican, but a Republican who voted to decertify the election and, vote against Trump's impeachment. So, I think the top of the ticket will be influential, but I think that a lot of the voters in our district are really turned off by some of the negativity and just craziness that's inside a lot of what we've seen from the Republican Party recently. And I think that, honestly, we're going to see a lot more of that over the next couple of years. So that's going to, I think, play a big role in the 24 election.
I love that. Those are great answers, guys. And if it's something else I was thinking about, I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on this, but I was at a New Dems thing this weekend, and we were talking about, taking about the House in 2024. And also, she was like, what's one of the things that we need to be thinking about? And I was like, I think we need to think about how we define swing voters. And, typically swing voters are just, they typically say they're, white and rural, or, white and educated or whatever, but swing voters are also minority men these days, right? Particularly. And I'm sure even Representative Vasquez, I'm sure you probably have thoughts on that, like, messaging to minority men, particularly Asian men, Black men, like these are voters who used to be Democratic base and now they're not so much. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts on, like, how do we make sure that the rhetoric that we're using is so inclusive and so piercing that, people who think that they are not necessarily targeted by Democratic messaging anymore feel like they are included in the Democratic Party?
That's a great point, Lauren. I'll just say, look, in my district, we have multi-generational Hispanic and Latino families that identify in many different ways, right? I represent both the South Valley and the west side of Albuquerque, and also 180 miles of communities on the U.S.-Mexico border. And I can tell you that the families that live in those communities are completely different, the Latino families, and many of them have different priorities. And so, as you mentioned, I think Latino males in particular, right, there's been this myth that we're losing Latinos to the Republican Party, especially Latino males. And look, I think we just have to be able to talk about the issues that matter to Latino families in a way that expands beyond what we think Latinos want to hear about. And oftentimes that is a conversation beyond immigration, right? Latino families that have been established here for 2 or 3 or 4 generations, whatever it might be, are thinking about the economy. They're thinking about education. They're thinking about the solvency of Social Security and Medicare. They're thinking about, caring for the elderly, or having the opportunity for the early child tax credit. Things that we traditionally think are more suburban kind of white issues are the same issues that I think a lot of Latinos care about. And so we can't pigeonhole Latino communities in particular. And we have seen that those communities of color are increasingly swing voters. And so we have to make sure that that we treat people with the political respect that they deserve in terms of targeting them on the same issues that we target other voters, because ultimately, that's what matters. That's what it means to be an American, that you get to take part in this economy, you get to take part in this democracy. And, once you're a citizen, then those matter. Those issues are the same that matter to everybody else.
I love that. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? I didn't want to jump into the next question before. Okay, no worries. So thinking about just some of the ripple effects that having a top of the ticket or congressional candidate can have on down ballot races. You guys are, again, running in places where, it's conservative leaning, or, a swing state or swing district or whatever. And the down ballot candidates, they really do get some help. Last cycle we did Welcome Pack did work in Ohio, and we not only were supporting Tim Ryan, but we also were supporting state house races. So we were like, if you're voting for Tim Ryan, also vote for Rachel Baker in the Cincinnati area, so trying to get the turnout. So what do you think are some of the other effects that your candidacy can have in a swing state or swing district that maybe people don't think about for other candidates, or for just advancing the Democratic infrastructure?
So I'll hit on the infrastructure piece. So the great state of Oklahoma, the Democratic Party, unfortunately, isn't organized. And that is due to the fact that the infrastructure has just dwindled due to the amount of beatings they've taken the last couple of years. And listen, it's just the reality with some of these swing states, or states that have been conservatively red for a very long time. And so, I think my candidacy and the ability for us to build an infrastructure across all 77 counties, that was something that, my team enabled me to do that. Let me be very clear with you. But my campaign was the first one to do that in 10 years. The party hadn't even gone out to counties out in the Panhandle, which is the hat over Texas, guys. And so I think for us then to take all of that goodness, all of the individuals that we connected with, keep them engaged and figure out how they can create their own infrastructure within their own counties. And even if it's not for the Democratic Party, just for engagement. You need to be very specific around who and how you're doing that based on the demographics in the region. But I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from my campaign specifically, and what I can add to my party here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and to Madison's point, first of all, Madison, that sounds like a tremendous amount of work because I'm super grateful that I already have 64 wonderful county chairs, and just even having those folks on the ground, it's crazy amount of work. But yes, local infrastructure is so important. And I just want to highlight one of the things that we do as the Colorado Democratic Party. So annually, we hit the road in the summers on our democracy tour, and we visit all 64 counties on a rotating 4-year cycle. So, 1 year we'll visit a fourth, and then, a fourth every year rotationally. And this past summer, what was super, super fun was seeing candidates up and down the ballot hopping on our democracy tour stop. So we had our state treasurer, Dave Young, campaigning with our state senate and our state house reps and our state board of education candidates, and just bringing those folks out and coming together. And, of course, there are laws that we have to follow when it comes to canvas launches and events with congressional versus or federal versus statewide campaigns, but even just creating those spaces and getting folks out and getting folks excited. I know that parades are kind of a funny thing in political spaces because they're super fun and they're a great way to get folks out, but also there's so many of them. But especially this summer, for us, again, I think one of the most rewarding experiences was seeing Senator Michael Bennet walking with Dave Young and multiple of our state house reps, and just seeing the power of statewide candidates can have on down ballot.
I love that. I appreciate that, guys. Yeah, parades. Again, Corey and I are from South Carolina. I went to Ohio and I was like, there's a parade for everything out here. This is great, but also wow. But yeah, I'm gonna pitch it back to Corey. Guys, I'm so grateful for your answers and your thoughtfulness and your feedback in this panel. I'm learning from you and hope to connect with each of you after this as well to just figure out where we can be most helpful. So over to Corey.
Yeah. So before I wrap it up, I want to ask Lauren to give some answers to some of these questions. Lauren does some incredible work all across the country, and I know I've seen a few questions in here about the work that Welcome Pack does. Can you talk a little bit about that? Go a little bit more in detail about the work that you're doing with Welcome Pack and how you're going about recruiting and supporting these candidates that can help win up and down the ballot here.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give our quick little spiel. So we started Welcome Pack because we thought that we need to put more seats on the map. We need to make bigger bets, right? So just like in investments, in business, if you have an opportunity that you think is worth it, you take that risk and then you have really big rewards. Except here, obviously, political repercussions are that government is either crumbling or not crumbling, right? And so we started Welcome Pack to contest more Republicans in center right districts. So again, mentioning places like California 41 and Colorado's 3rd and Ohio. And so just looking forward to continue to provide more. We are very partisan, obviously, in our work as well with Democrats. We're also explicitly moderate. And so we do moderate candidate recruitment, and we try to make sure that there is a strong moderate candidate running against Republican incumbents so that the center right and independent voters who are voting in the district have an alternative that they can actually get behind, right? And so that's what we do. We also work on, narrative changing, trying to make sure that people perceive Democrats in a way that is not funky, right? A lot of people, you go to their door and you say you're a Democrat and they're like, you can leave, right? And so, yep, I'm sure, Madison, I can't imagine some of the conversations you had. Oh my goodness, we have to talk off the record about that one day. But yeah, and so trying to make sure that people understand, like you said, Madison, like Democrats are delivering, right? They're doing all sorts of stuff. Representative Vasquez is working hard up there. And if people don't know about it, then we are literally not doing it. It's like picture or it didn't happen, right? And so making sure that the narrative about what it means to run and win as a Democrat is different in 2023, and supporting candidates to make sure that we can do the work that the DCCC doesn't necessarily intend to do, because they have their incumbent protection, they have their frontliners and everything, but they also don't go as far right as we do. And so we're kind of filling that void of, what group can help us do this that has the resources and doesn't have to take away our resources in the DCCC to do it. So
in other words, you're winning the middle to save democracy?
Winthemiddle.com. I'm going to plug it. winthemiddle.com. We got a website, we got an archive. Make sure everybody checks it out. This is how we win the middle and save democracy.
Well, you're doing incredible work, and thank you so much to all of our panelists, to Lauren. Thank you for this incredible conversation that we're having and we'll continue to have. And it sounds like there are a couple of really great connections that are going to come from this panel moving forward. So again, thank you so much. And to all of you joining, Field Team 6 is ready, willing, and able to help register Democrats in all of your campaigns and districts and states. Oh, I'm getting a message that we have time for one more audience question. Lauren, if you want to pick one out.
Pick one out. Hold on. Hold on. Got me all discombobulated over here. I don't see any. Hold on. Let's see. I'm reading. There's like 140 comments in here, so.
I'm so sorry. I thought we had texted you a few. Perhaps we did not do that.
Here's a question. Is Madison going to run again?
It's a great question to end on.
Yeah.
Wow, guys.
Put you on the spot, Madison.
I absolutely do want to run again. I had such a phenomenal experience running for office, and it really solidified both my mission and, what I want to accomplish for both my state and hopefully the country. As far as when, I have no freaking clue, to be honest with you, because I am watching the landscape as so many of us are. And I want to ensure that there's that path to victory. So I appreciate the question. Thank you very much, guys.
And Madison, if you choose to run, of course, we'll be behind you, but we will certainly be working with you to help register Democrats in Oklahoma throughout the next 2 years and beyond. And for anyone who wants to help join us in that and help us register Democrats in California's 27th, New Mexico's 2nd, all across Colorado and all across Oklahoma and all over the country, check out the links that we're dropping in the chat now to look at some of our opportunities to volunteer. And last but not least, none of the outreach that we do is free. Everything that we do costs money, from buying data to sending texts to sending emails to storing all of our data. And we found that our outreach, for every $15, that helps us register 10 new Democrats everywhere that we go, which is a really, really inexpensive return on your investment to help create these Democratic majorities all across the country. So if you can, please click the link in the chat to make a contribution, help us continue to do this work. And sign up for our newsletter so you'll get updates as we move along. Especially soon, we'll be announcing the number of Democrats that we helped register in the 2022 cycle. So we will be announcing that in our newsletter in just a couple of weeks. So now we're going to head back to the main stage where we'll hear from Field Team 6 founder Jason Berlin's runway to 2024, seeing all the races and all the work that we have to do in the next 21 months left ahead of the next election. So thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our attendees. We're going to head over to the Zoom main stage and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.